During the summer of 2009, a massive construction project was underway in the mountains of Chicago. This project was so secretive that even the construction workers did not know what the tunnel that they were constructing was to be used for. The construction of a colossal tunnel would go on to symbolise everything that was wrong with the stock markets in the modern era. So, sit back and relax. This is Extraordinary Money Tales. To figure out what the tunnel was to be used for, first we need to take the story back a few years to 2006. Brad Katsuyama of the Royal Bank of Canada was a bright, curious analyst who had dreams of one day running the bank for which he currently worked. He was in the position of frequently buying large amounts of shares on the stock exchange, and was also set on maximising profits for the company. Brad began to notice something odd happening whenever he placed a stock order, and this was beginning to hinder his profitability. Brad would place an order for some stock, say 5,000 units of stock at the current market value, say $100 a share. Yet, he would never be able to get 5,000 shares at $100. He always seemed to end up paying slightly more. Maybe he would end up paying $100.10 for each share. It was as if someone was reading his mind and pushed the price higher as soon as he clicked the button. This was strange. The information on his computer said that there was enough shares available to be sold for $100, so why couldn't he ever buy them at this price? He asked his co-workers if they knew the reason, with no luck. He then asked technical experts, still with no luck. Perhaps this was something to do with his computer, or perhaps the exchange itself. He asked everyone and anyone on why this might be, yet no one could give him an answer. As the amount of missing money was relatively small compared to the total cost of the trade, people had not given it any thought and simply accepted the phenomenon as a feature of the market. Brad wouldn't settle for this answer. He set on his journey to track exactly how the stocks ended up in his account after he clicked the buy button. After researching for some time, Brad realised the process of purchasing stocks was more complex than he had hoped. Brad realised that his stock order would not go to a single exchange, but portions of his order would be sent to other exchanges to complete. For example, if Brad wanted 5,000 shares, some 3,000 shares might be bought from the New York Stock Exchange, and some 2,000 from the Chicago Exchange. Brad realised that this presented a problem. Someone could front-run a portion of his order. Here's how that works. Brad's stock order is sent out to the New York Stock Exchange and the Chicago Stock Exchange in order to buy shares on a company for $100 a share. Although Brad sent the orders to the two exchanges at the same time, the orders sent to the New York Stock Exchange may arrive slightly before the order sent to Chicago, as Brad may be closer to the New York Stock Exchange, so the time it takes for the computer signal to reach the exchange is less. Now, a front runner, whom is closely watching the markets, sees a sudden jump in the price of the stock at the New York Stock Exchange, which indicates someone has bought large volumes of a company's shares. Thinking that there is a good chance that whoever has bought all these shares at the New York Exchange will have also sent an order to the Chicago Exchange, the front runner then immediately sends a buy order to Chicago for the company's shares. If this order gets there before Brad's order, the front runner can sell Brad the shares he wanted at an increased price. As a result, the front runner makes a tiny profit on the trade. One question you might be asking is, how does the front runner send a signal which gets to Chicago before Brad's order? Well, with speed. Typically, an order travels through the existing electrical network, which crisscrosses across the country until it reaches its destination. The time it takes for a signal to travel from New York to Chicago is roughly 17 milliseconds, following the traditional route. Now, if the signal could travel in a perfectly straight line, the travel time would reduce to 13 milliseconds. Thereby, the front runner could potentially beat Brad's order with sheer speed. This is precisely what the company Spread Networks was trying to achieve by building an 820-mile fibre optic cable from New York to Chicago, cutting through rivers and mountains in the process. To keep the cable as straight as possible, the company had to bore directly through mountains. Any deviation from a straight line would add on fractions of a second. This whole $300 million construction project was to result in a tiny 4 millisecond gain in speed. Yet this advantage would be enough to make back the initial investment, and much, much more. Brad was shocked to find out that high-frequency trading firms were profiting on the trades of the average retail investor, and they were profiting big. Totally unknown to the whole of Wall Street, high-frequency trading firms were secretly pumping out millions of orders every minute. In 2009, the problem was so big that high-frequency traders accounted for roughly 73% of the total equity order volume, and the high-frequency trading market was worth approximately $5 billion per year. Complex algorithms would issue buy and sell orders extremely quickly when any potential market imperfections were detected. This was the beginning of the modern investing world, in which even the investors, mathematicians, and researchers who were creating trading algorithms didn't even know how they worked. So, how could the regular retail investor compete in the modern age? Was this the end of profitable trading without the use of complex financial algorithms? Well, contrary to what people thought at the time, it would seem not. For one, high-frequency trading firms were more competing with each other rather than competing with regular long-term investors. Yes, perhaps retail investors were losing a fraction of any potential profits, but this was minuscule in comparison with the generic trading fees which were massively eroding profits anyway. The actual impact that front-running had on each retail investor was pretty negligible. The profits were instead taken from institutional investors and investing firms. Also, there is an argument to be made that high-frequency traders actually benefit the market in general, as they can actually reduce market volatility, which is generally a good thing for investors. One well-known example of this is the flash crash in 2010, where completely out of nowhere, the Dow Jones plummeted 9% in a matter of minutes. Although high-frequency traders were originally blamed for the crash, the current accepted theory is that poor regulation in the space was directly accountable for the crash, and high-frequency trading firms actually prevented the crash from being as bad as it could have been, as they responded immediately to the sudden downswing. Front-running orders is now, thankfully, a thing of the past. Regulations soon caught up and quickly banned the practice. And now, the huge lines of optical cables which are left scattered all over the world can be a constant reminder of some of the dark secrets of the trading world. These cables are still used for high-frequency trading by large companies, and new technologies such as the use of microwaves are being used to shave off further fractions of a second in the need for speed, which most of us would have never known is happening. The secret arms race fought by banks and institutions in order to squeeze out profits from the market. So, where do we stand today? Well, some of you might have realised that much of the story sounds familiar. Even today, we have similar practices like payment for order flow, which closely resembles front-running. Companies practicing payment for order flow profit a tiny fraction of each trade. It seems that people always find a way around the rules and regulations to exploit retail investors. Despite this, and all of the other market scandals and scams that we hear about daily, today's investing climate is arguably the best it's ever been for your average retail investor. Trading has never been so cheap and profitable. Hopefully the lessons learned will stand the test of time. If you made it this far, I would like to thank you for watching. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, as it helps me out a great deal. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.